Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I'm Arif and I welcome you all to today's session. To access the notebook for today's session, you can access the course page on my personal website, arifpat.me. You can click the appropriate notebook under the lecture resource column to view it in Jupyter NB Viewer and can run it online on Binder. The other way to download it is to visit the course GitHub account, RFPUCIT, and here is the public data science repository. Well, right now this Jupyter Notebook dashboard is running locally on my machine at port 8888, and here is the notebook for lecture 2.10 of the second module, Basic Python Programming, for the course titled Tools and Techniques for Data Science. My dear students, in the last session we discussed Python selection structure, and today we are going to talk about the repetition structure. Well, there are certain scenarios in programming where we need to repeat a set of instructions a specified number of times or until a condition is met, and this is called iteration. A programming structure that implements iteration is called a loop. And here is the agenda of today's notebook. We will understand the syntax of Python's while loop construct. We'll see the use of break, continue, and else statements in while loop. And finally, we will close while loop part with some nested while loop examples. Well, the second part deals with the second loop category, that is the for loop, which is normally used to loop through an iterable and perform some action on each item. In this part, we will discuss the iterables and iterators in Python, the use of range and enumerate functions, and the use of break, continue, and else statement in the for loop. Finally, before concluding today's session, we will discuss a very important and very commonly used concept, and that is comprehension in Python. My dear students, in Python, comprehension is actually a technique using which we can create new sequences from already existing sequences in a short, concise, and elegant manner. So we will understand the list as well as the dictionary comprehension today. The set comprehension is a bit less common, and there is no specific syntax available for performing a tuple comprehension. However, I have seen that there is a workaround in which you can wrap the tuple method around the generator object. We may touch that in some later part of the course. Anyway, let's start playing. So first of all, the while loop. Well, this is a flowchart which describes the while loop. You need to initialize the loop variable in the very beginning, and then we have a condition. And if the condition is true, we move on to this path, that is execute whatever statement you want to execute. You update the loop counter and you check the condition again. And this path continues executing till the time the condition is false. And once the condition is false, we move out onto this path. So this is what a very simple while loop is. Once again, make it your habit to get help about different keywords, and while is also a keyword. So here is a very basic example. Initialize a variable, loop variable number, and I want to run this loop till the time this condition is true. So number is less than 7. So I just want to print it, and then I'm updating it. And this statement will be executed once this loop breaks. Can anybody tell me what will be the output of this code? Remember, this print statement is above this number plus 1 statement. Well, yes, you are right. It will print up till 6, from 0 to 6, and then it will say bye bye. One more thing about the syntax, you can keep the brackets over here, parentheses over here, and you can skip them. It works pretty fine in both scenarios. Must never forget to put a colon over here to tell Python that this is the start of a new block, and remember to have indentation over here. Well, Jupyter Notebook cell, code cell automatically do that for you. I have used this cell magic over here, and I am calculating the 100th factorial in this code. This is quite simple. If I is 0, then the result is 1. Otherwise, I am looping through till 10. Okay, make it 100. And let's see how big this factorial is. And result is equal to result minus I. I hope this is clear, and this is how I have described it over here. If anyone is new to programming, he can just go through with this and run this step by step to have a clear understanding. Anyway, this cell magic command time will give you time of this code. So this is the output, a huge number. Once you run this inside C or C++, you will get a overflow. However, in Python 3.x, we have the number data type, that is the integer data type, dependent on the size of the memory. So you can have large numbers. So this is a huge number. Anyway, this command time, magic command, tells you about these two CPU times, the user time and the system time. The user time is the amount of time taken outside the kernel, that is in user space, and this system time is the time that is taken by the kernel, that is the time spent executing the user space code and the time spent executing the kernel space code. And this wall time is actually the time between the job was submitted to the CPU and the job was completed. Anyway, so this is a good habit. Whenever you are writing code, a complex code, you can find out how much time it is taking. Let me make it 1000 and let's see what happens. Oops. So this is a huge number again, and it has taken this much time. Anyway, well, this is example 3. It prompts the user to enter a number and compute the sum of that number. The loop runs for n number of times. If I enter 5, it will run 5 times. So each time it will sum up the number starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So this is a very simple example. Let me say 5, press enter, and this is 15. Remember, do not forget to typecast whenever you are using the Python built-in function input. Well, you can use the while loop to iterate over the elements of the list. So this is a list containing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strings. Learning is fun with Arif, but 5 strings. So I have used the len function over here. So the len function will return 5. So counter is less than 5. Till the time this condition is true, this will continue. And finally, once the elements are exhausted, this will return false and the loop will break. So these are the individual strings of this list. You can perform whatever operation you want to perform. I have just printed them. Well, you can always use iterables as well inside the while loop expression. For example, you can just write down the name of this list, while my list, and of course you have to do something to make the loop stop. So what I'm doing over here is I am popping. I'm using the pop method of the list class to pop the rightmost value of the iterable each time it is called. So this again has the same impact. Soon we will see the for loops are far more better whenever you are going to use with the different sequences and iterables. Okay, so this is a simple code that generates a Fibonacci series. Let me run it. I want 10 numbers, 10 initial numbers of the Fibonacci series. So here are the 10 numbers. Go with that logic. This is very simple. In case if the user enters 0, then the list should be empty. If the user enters 1, there should be only one element inside the list, and this FIB is a list. Basically, we are creating a list. If the user enters 2, I know the first two numbers of the Fibonacci series are 0 and 1. And in case if the user enters greater than 2, I need to enter into a loop. So for that case, I know the first two numbers are 0 and 1, and the next number will be the sum of the previous two numbers. And this is the logic. Great. We can have nested while loops as well. So this is the outer loop and this is the inner loop. The outer loop is working on this list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And the inner loop is working on this list, which contains Arif and Rauf. And for every time I enter, I need to naturally pop the element of the outer loop and the inner loop as well. So once I enter inside the outer loop, I pop an element of the outer loop. So of course this will run 5 times. And once I enter the inner loop, I pop the element of the inner loop. And remember, this list is created every time you enter into this loop. So that means this will print um, one, this will print outer Arif Rauf and Arif Rauf. Yes, it will for every element of this list, that is for this one, this Arif and Rauf will be printed, and then for this two, this Arif and Rauf will be printed, and then for this three, this Arif and Rauf will be printed, and the program will break the outer loop when this list is exhausted. So we will have a output of 10 lines roughly. So for the first time, Rauf Arif, second time, Rauf Arif, third time, Rauf Arif, and so on. So let's move ahead and talk about the jump statements. Yes, jump and break and continue. In the above examples, we have seen the entire body of the while loop is executed on each iteration. Python provides two keywords that terminates a loop prematurely. First of all is the Python break statement. Well, my dear students, this is the same flowchart. We have an additional condition over here. So once you check the loop condition, inside the true part of the loop, we have another condition, and this is the break statement. And this condition checks if a specific condition occurs, we exit the loop. And if that specific condition is false, that is the break condition is not true, we move back and execute the loop body and check the loop condition again. So this is what break is. And the continue part is, once again we have the continue statement within the loop body, and however this continue statement immediately terminates the current loop iteration. Remember, this break statement terminates the loop entirely. We exit the loop, but over here this just skips the execution of the body of the loop. Whenever this condition is true, we just skip the remaining part of the loop. So I think this will make more sense once we will see an example. Okay, so this is an example. I'm entering into an infinite loop and I'm increment the loop variable n with 1. So this is the break statement. So this break is going to break this infinite loop when a specific condition is met. And the specific condition in our case is when n equals 5. So this will of course print 1, 2, 3, 4, but once it will reach 5, that will not be printed. Great. Okay, over here as well, I think this is a bit different. Yes, we have initialized it with 10 and we are just running it from 10 to 9, 8, 7, 6, and this 5 again, this 5 will not be printed. So 9, 8, 7, 6, great. Okay, so let's talk about the continue statement. Do make it your habit again to see the internal documentation, internal help. Okay, as I have already said, this continue statement is used whenever this condition is true. The loop body, the rest of the loop body will not be executed. This continue statement will move back to this condition. So this means this line will come down over here, 9 will be printed, 8 will be printed, 7 will not be printed, because when the 7 will be there in n, this condition will be true, and this continue statement will be executed. We will move up over here and this line will not be executed. So we will count down from 10, and once we reach 5 or 7, that line will not be printed. So we don't have the 5 and 7 as well. And over here we are just printing the even numbers, I think, odd numbers rather. So if n mod 2 is equal to 0, that means the number is even, then continue. So in case of even number, we are not moving down to this instruction of print statement. Okay, there is another concept of using an else statement with a while loop. Probably those of you who have been programming using C and C++ might not be very comfortable with the concept of the else statement within a loop. Well, my dear students, this is the while loop. This is the body of the loop. And like we have an else with the if, we have an else with the while as well over here. So this body of the else part will execute only when this condition is false. However, remember that this else part will execute only if the loop terminates normally. If you break it using the break statement or the return statement, then this will not execute. So over here it will of course execute once the value of n, that is the loop counter, reaches 0. Okay, so let's talk about the for loop now. So for loop, whenever we want to run a block of code a known set of times, normally on an iterable, we use the for loop. In the context of data science, Python for loops are used to loop through an iterable object like list, tuple, set, and dictionary, and perform some action on each entry. And the syntax is for some variable in some iterable colon do this. And before we see basic examples for the for loop, let's first understand the concept of iterables and iterators. Well, iterables and iterators. And iterable in Python is an object that can be used in an iteration. So list, set, tuples, dictionaries are iterables that can be iterated. Iterator in Python is an object that is used to iterate over iterables. Okay, so we will see this in an example. To initialize an iterator, we pass an iterable object to the Python built-in function iter. So this is an iter built-in function. We pass an iterable to this iter, and this iter function actually returns an object that can be iterated. And later we can use next to move to the next item. Anyway, let's understand this with an example. Let's suppose we have a list banana, mango, grapes containing 3 elements, and I call the function iter, and to this function iter I am passing this list. So this iter function is going to return an iterator on this list. So let me run this, and you see this is generating a iterator, that is a list iterator, and this is the address of the list iterator. You can pass any list to this, so this will generate a list iterable. Uh, Over here we have a tuple. You can see the brackets. Over here we have straight brackets, and over here we have the parentheses. So this will generate a tuple iterator. This generated a list iterator. This generated a tuple iterator. And of course this will generate a set iterator, and this will generate a dictionary iterator. So this iter is passed this complete dictionary, so it has generated a dictionary key iterator. So if you want to generate the iterator that iterates on dictionary values, you can use this values method over here, which we have seen in our previous session. So this time it will generate a dictionary value iterator. This is dictionary key iterator, which will iterate over the keys. This is dictionary value iterator. And if you want to just use this keys method over here, so you can generate the key iterator like this as well, and like this as well. So anyway, so now I have tried to explain that iter function is used to generate an iterator. Let's see the help. So iter is passed an iterable, and it returns an iterator, and the iterator type is dependent, of course, on the object type or the iterable type that is passed. Okay, so what to do with this iterator now? So next function. My dear students, the Python built-in next function is pass the iterator of the iterable object. So this was the iterable object dictionary. This was the iterator. Now I'm going to pass this iterator to the next function. Every time next is called on this iterator, the next item from the associated iterable object is retrieved and returned. Okay, let's see this. Suppose we have this list. I call iter function on this list. I get an iterator object A. I pass this iterator object to next, and I will get the first item banana. The next time I call, I get mango. The next time I call, I get grapes. And once you are exhausted with all the values in the iterator, you got the stop iteration error. Let me repeat again. So this is an iterable. I pass this iterable to the iter function. The iter function returns an iterator object. This iterator object is passed to the next to get this value, and then this value, and then this value repeatedly. And once this list is exhausted, we get a stop iteration error. And this is how the for loops work, my dear students. So this is the syntax of for loop that will make true sense to you all now. This is a list containing 3 elements, 3 strings, Arif, Hadid and Mujahid. I just say for I in my list print I. So the iter and the next function are working behind the scene. So for every time I run this loop, the first time I run this loop, the value Arif will be returned and placed in I, and this body of the loop will execute. The next time the item Hadid will be placed in I, that is, it will be returned by the next function. And finally this value Mujahid will be returned by the next function and placed in I. And after that, as shown over here, the next function will return a stop iteration error. And of course that is handled by the for loop, and the loop will break. My dear students, I have tried my best to do a bit of scuba diving as to how for loop works in Python, the basic for loop. I hope you have got the concept. If you have still some confusion, please revise this part of the video, watch it again, and you may send me an email or send a comment on the description box below or in the comment box, so that myself or any of my student can respond back. Let me move ahead. So let's see. Over here, this is a list containing three elements. So we have three values printed. And over here we have a string. This is also iterable. And you see, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, whatever letters. And now I think this for loop is a piece of cake for you all. You all know how it works. So it is a better practice to have good naming conventions. If this is a tuple having the list of my friends, so I name it friends, and inside the for loop I say for friend, singular friend, in friends, plural. Do this. So for the first time, this friend will have Arif. Okay. Anyway, so you can iterate through a tuple using a loop. You can iterate through this a string. So over here, what I am a logic I am playing with. If the character is I am just counting. So I just want to count the occurrences of I in this string, and I think it is 3. Yes. Okay, so you can iterate through the dictionary keys, and you can there are two ways of doing that. One is you just place the dictionary name over here for I in D1, so this will just print the keys of the dictionary, and the other way is you specifically write D1 dot keys. This is the preferable way because this code is more readable. So once I execute this code, all the keys of this dictionary will be printed using two ways, and this is the preferred way, more readable. And the way you can iterate through the keys, you can iterate through the values as well. Just replace this thing in the loop. My dear students, I hope this makes sense to you all. And you can of course iterate through the key value pairs. Over here I have iterated through the keys, over here I have iterated through the values, and over here I want to iterate over the key value pairs. So this d1 dot items returns a tuple having two values, the key and of course the value. Anyway, well, the pass statement, my dear students, the pass statement is generally used as a placeholder. We have seen its usage in the if-else part. You can use it in the for as well. Let's suppose this is a list and I just want to print this list, but I don't want to do the printing whenever this Arif turns up. So I have used this condition. So if this I contains Arif, so do nothing. That is, don't do this. Great. And over here I'm just ignoring the spaces. In this string, this is another example of pass. In this string, whenever we have a space inside this I, so we don't print it. So I have just removed the spaces from this string. So very simple. Okay, so let's move ahead and talk about the range function in for loop. This is very commonly used. You should be very comfortable while using the range functions. A range method is used to create a range object, and the range object contains sequences of numbers that can be iterated inside a for loop. You can call the range function by passing a single number to it, and it will generate a sequence of numbers from 0 to n minus 1. And if you pass two numbers to it, it will generate a sequence of numbers from starting from a to b, not inclusive, or a to b minus 1 with a step of 1. And if you want to mention the step as well, you can mention the step. So here I have just told you that this range function returns an object whose type is range, and if you just print the range, you get a iterator object name, and if you can typecast it to list, you get the numbers. So this will print from 0 to 9. This will print from -5 to 1 with a step of 1, and this will print from 20 to 2 with a step of -3. So here it is. So this simply is telling you that this is a range object containing sequence from 0 to 10 or 0 to 9. So you can use this object like this over here. it will return the range object inside A. You can use this iterable in the for loop over here, and you can print from 0 to 4. Okay, and you can print from 3 to 10. And remember, you can put this over here as well directly instead of using like this. So this will also work pretty fine. Anyway, so this is a step of 4. And suppose we have a list of friends over here, and I'm saying that for I in range len friends. So instead of using this friends directly over here, I'm just using the length function on this friends and generating the range object for that. And you see, this way I will get the index of the elements as well as the names of the elements inside this list. And I am printing that over here. A quite elegant example. Okay. So after this range, the other is enumerate function, that is also very commonly used in the for loops. Well, my dear students, the enumerate method is passed an iterable object, as you can see over here, and it returns an enumerate object. The enumerate object it returns contains tuple, and each tuple has two values, the index and the data value. Suppose I have passed it the list, it will return an enumerate object containing two values, containing 0 Arif, 1 Hadid, 2 Mujahid. So this will just print that this RV is of type enumerate, and this will tell you the contents of the enumerate object. So once again, enumerate function is used whenever you want to have a list. Whenever you have a list and you want to associate each list element with associate index, and have that in a tuple. So this is what it is. Okay, so this is also another example. I am calling enumerate on friends, and of course this enumerate method is going to return a two valued tuple. The first value is the index, and the second value is the value of the list, that is this name. So for the first time it is called, it will return 0 comma Rauf. 0 will be in I, Rauf will be in name, and so on. Very elegant. Okay, the way we can use the break and continue statement inside the while loop, you can use the break and continue statement inside the for loop as well. Okay, for in this example, just see, I am saying that I iterate through this list fruits for x in fruits, and if x is cherry, break. That means do not print execute the body of the loop, that is print whenever the value is cherry. So cherry will not be printed. So apple, banana, and okay, this will break the loop. Sorry, this will break the loop. It is not that it will continue that. So once it reaches cherry, the loop will break. So you will just get the output in as apple and banana. So this is continue, and this will say whenever this banana will come, you should not fall back to this statement of print, that is do not print banana. Rather move back to the for loop and complete the loop for the rest of the list, cherry, guava. So this will print apple, cherry, and guava. Fine. And of course we can use a range object over here, and I am saying this time if I mod 2 equals 0, continue. That means I do not want to print the even numbers this time. Yes, I just want to print the odd numbers. So the way we can have the else in the while loop, we can have the else in the for loop as well. Can anybody tell me the logic of this code? Okay, so this is the dictionary. I've created a dictionary over here containing some names and their marks, and I am prompting the user to enter a name, storing that name in this variable student name. Then I'm running a loop for name in my dict.keys. So this will iterate over this iterable, and each time this will return a name, and the first time it will return Arif inside this name, and I will check if Arif is the student name which the user has entered, then I'm going to print the name. Okay, so once I print that name, the name along with that, the key along with that value will be printed. So to keep it simple, this is a dictionary. I prompt the user to enter a name. If the name exists in the dictionary, the name and the marks will be displayed. So let me run it to have an understanding. Let me say Mars and press enter. And you say Mars has 81 marks. Great. Let me run it again and let me say my name. And Arif has 90 marks. Okay, once again, my dear students, the main purpose of these sessions is not to teach you the programming logic. The main objective is to acquaint you with the syntax and the programming constructs of the Python programming language. And you can have nested loop. This is the same example which we have seen above as well, but this time it is using the for loop, and this time I think 5 is not here, and maybe the names are also different. And this is another example. So for every item in the outer list, that is days, I'm saying Monday, then apple. With Monday we have banana, with Monday we have guava, and this is what the output is. Okay, so let me change gear and talk about the last portion, that is comprehension. And as I said in my intro part, in Python, comprehension is a very important technique, very commonly used technique. It is a technique using which we can create new sequences from already existing sequences in a short, concise, and elegant manner. So let's talk about the list comprehension first. Let's suppose that we want to create a list containing squares of the numbers from 1 to 10. Suppose. So this is the range that will generate a range object containing numbers from 1 to 10. I just create a new empty list. I enter in a for loop. Sorry. So this for loop will run for this range object, that is from 1 to 10. And inside this new list, I'm going to append. Each time I get a 1 over here, 1 into 1, I get a 2 over here, 2 into 2, I get a 3 over here, 3 into 3, and so on. So finally I will have a list that contains the square of the numbers from 1 to 10, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on. So this is one way of doing it, using the for loop. List comprehension provides you a very efficient and very elegant syntax to perform this task. Okay, so this is what it is. It says that you use a syntax of list comprehension. So this is a syntax of list comprehension. First of all, note the straight brackets at the very end. So this is list. If you see a curly braces over here, that means this is a dictionary comprehension. So this is going to create a list that will be placed in this variable new list. And this should contain what? An expression. I into I is an expression. For I in range blah blah blah, this is for the simple for loop. If you see the syntax over here, expression for item in iterable. So this is the expression which will use this item to finalize what will be placed in this list. So expression is something that is used to call a method or any valid expression. You can have mathematical operators in it or whatever, but it should generate a value that should be assigned as an item to this list, and for every item in this iterable. So that means this first time this loop will run, it will have a 1. So 1 into 1 means 1. So the first element of this new list is 1. Next time it will run, it will have 2 in I. So 2 into 2, 4, and so on. So let me run it. And this is it. I think this is not required. I have used the range directly over here, so this is not required. However, if you do something like this, it will also generate the same output. So this is what comprehension is. You have a list comprehension. This is a list, and you want to generate a new list from this list, having a bit different values. Okay, so let's see another example. Suppose I want to create a new list that should contain the even numbers from an existing list. So this time I need to have a condition as well over here. Let's suppose this is a list and I want you to create a list, and that new list should have only the even numbers, that is 12, 88, 20 and 32. So this is the same part that we have seen above. Sorry for this. Yes. So what I want to do is, for every item in this list 1, for I in list 1, I just want to place the same item inside this new list. But I have a condition this time. And the condition says, if I mod 2 double equals 0, that is if this number is even. So this will run for every item in this list. And if this condition is true, we'll assign this item to this new list. So this new list will have 12, 88, 20 and 32. I hope this syntax is clear to you, and how it works. It also makes sense. Okay, so let's see another example. Okay, suppose we want to create a new list from this fruits list. This is a fruits list having apple, banana, cherry, kiwi and mango. And I just want that the new list should contain only those fruits having an alphabet A in their name. So that means this new list should have apple, it should have banana, it should not have cherry, it should not have kiwi, it should have mango, because these three fruits have alphabet A in their name. So the longer way of doing it is I run the loop for fruit in fruits and I check this condition. If A in fruit, if this name fruit, that is this apple first time, has A in it, what I'm going to do is, this is the newly empty created list, I'm going to append that fruit in this list. So this loop will run for all these elements and will place apple, banana and mango inside this new list. Great. So let's solve the same example using comprehension. See how elegant it is. So this is the same list of fruits. I want to place apple, banana and mango in a new list on the logic that they have an A. Note the syntax. We have straight brackets over here. We have the for loop over here for fruit in fruits. So this is the for loop which is going to iterate over this list, and every time every item of this list will be there in fruit. And over here I am having a condition, and this condition is saying that if A in fruit, if this name has this alphabet, then assign this to this. Great. I think this makes sense. Okay, so this is another example. Again, we have the same fruits list, and this time I just want that the new list should contain all elements less kiwi, because kiwi is a bit costly in Lahore, so I don't want to keep the kiwi in the list. So over here, simply the condition is a bit different. If fruit is not equal to kiwi, only then you assign this fruit to this new list. So the new list contains 4 fruits. So this was about the list comprehension. Let's talk about dictionary comprehension as well. Uh, well, my dear students, this dictionary comprehension offers a shorter syntax when you want to create a new dictionary. As usual, this is quite similar to what we have seen in list. Uh, However, inside the syntax, you can observe these brackets. In case of list comprehension, we have straight brackets. In case of dictionary comprehension, we have these curly braces. Let's suppose that we have a list one, and we want to create a dictionary from this list one. We can have new dictionaries from dictionaries. We can have new dictionaries from lists as well. So let's first do this example. I want to create a dictionary dict1 from this list 1, and this list 1 contains elements 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this key value pair to this dictionary. Let me repeat again. I'm going to assign this key value pair to this dictionary, and this has to be done for this loop for key in list 1. So this will run over this iterable. The first time it will run, this key will have a value 1. So the key is 1 and the value will also be 1. Value will be 1 hat 3, of course, 1. And the next time it will run 2, this key will have a 2. So the key will have a 2 and the value will be 2 power 3, 8. And this is what this is. The next time for key in list 1, this key will have 3. So the key will have 3. 3 power 3 is 9. 3 to the 9, 9 to the 27. 27. So this will be the output. I hope this makes sense to you all. Okay, so that means that this is our dictionary having keys of list 1 and values as the cubes of this list. So this is more precise statement. Fine. So let's see another example. Over here we have a list 1, and the list 1 of course contains values from 0 to 9. Okay. So I want to create a new dictionary from this list which has the keys as the list keys and the values that map to the numbers to their cubes, however not divisible by 4. Okay. Over here we do not have the if statement, but over here we have to add the if as well. Fine. For key in range 1 to 6. Okay. Let me change this to list 1. List 1. So I want to iterate over this list 0 to 9. So each time this will run, the key and the value will be placed inside dictionary 1 based on this condition this time. And this condition says if the value, that is key power 3 mod for double equals 0, only then the value will be placed over here. So we are going to make a cube of this list, and if that cube is not divisible by 4, only then it will be placed. Rather, if the key is divisible by 4, if it is divisible by 4. Okay, so you see this 0 divisible by 4, fine, so it has been placed. 8 is divisible by 4, 64 is divisible by 4, and these two numbers are also divisible by 4. Okay, so good example. Fine. So let's see another example, and it says that use dictionary comprehension to create a new dictionary. This time we are creating a new dictionary from a dictionary. So this is dictionary 1, and this contains key value pairs. The key is the item name, that is milk, and the value is the price. The key is the item name chocolate, and the value is the price. The key is the item name and the value is the price. So this is dictionary 1. And the government has increased the rates of all these items, and we need to multiply the prices with 1.25 to get the new prices. And I want to create a new dictionary that should contain all these values. So once again, this is dictionary comprehension. This is dictionary comprehension in which we are creating a new dictionary from an existing dictionary. In the previous example, we were creating a dictionary from a list. Okay. So what we are going to do is, it's very simple. The new dictionary will contain this key value pair. The key will be the same, that is milk, chocolate and bread, and the values will be different. For milk it will be 120 multiplied by 1.25. For chocolate it is 45 into 1.25 and so on. And note the loop for key value in dict1 dot items. Remember, this items method returns a tuple containing the key value pairs. So great. Let's see the last example, I think, this time. This is again a dictionary comprehension, creating a dictionary from an existing dictionary. We have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and these are some numbers. I don't know what they means. Anyway, we are creating a key value pair, and this time we are just placing the keys and values as such. We are not manipulating the value, and this is to be done for this, for all key value pairs in this item. So for all 1, 2, 3, 4, for 4 key value pairs, they will be placed inside dict2. But this is the filtering criteria, and the filtering criteria says if the value mod 2 equals 0. So that means this 47, this key value pair containing the value 47 and this key value pair containing the value 79 will not be placed inside this dictionary. Okay, so this is it. You see this Bravo 84 and Delta 92. Okay, my dear friends, please check out your concepts. As I have already said that this list and dictionary comprehension are very commonly used in data science. However, this set comprehension is a bit less common, and this tuple comprehension, there is not a workaround for tuple, because you have seen that tuple also use the brackets, the parentheses, and the parentheses are used by set as well. So you can make a workaround using the generator object. Anyway, so my dear students, make changes in this notebook file, play with the given sample code snippets, let your curiosity run wild and perform a scuba diving to understand the concept discussed in today's session, that is the loop constructs of Python and list and dictionary comprehensions. I hope today's session was informative for you all. If you have liked it, please subscribe my YouTube channel and share it with your friends. I wish you all the best. Happy learning and Allah Hafiz.